So in this case, we are looking at limits of special trigonometric functions. So special in a sense that when you see them, you will already know what is the limit. Okay? And for those who attended the session last time, we already established the values for this. So as t approaches 0 of sine t over t, according to your notes, this is equal to 1. Okay, the other one is limit as t approaches 0, 1 minus cosine t over t is equal to 0. Okay, so if we will be memorizing this, always check if all the values are like, say, t approaches 0. If I change it to t approaches 1, then it will not work. Okay, because it will be approaching a different number. So check first, is it t approaching 0? Yes. Sine t over t? Yes. 1 minus cosine t over t? Yes. Okay, but of course, during the exam, you won't see a question like, find the limit as t approaches 0 of sine t over t. Walang ganon. Okay, but a possible question will be, it will be hidden in an expression. Say approaching 0, I'll say t sine t over t square. Okay, hindi na siya ganun ka-obvious. But the moment you see there's a sine t and there's somehow a t below, then it will give you an idea. It could possibly be the sine t over t. So we try to manipulate the function or the expression to come up with sine t over t. So in effect, if we simplify or do some manipulations, the t sine t, or you can actually do it immediately, t over the t square will become t, and that's the time that you conclude that the limit is equal to 1. Okay, understand? Okay, what about the second limit? Let's create a new problem from the 1 minus cosine t. I could make it like 1 minus cosine, say, square t over 3 plus 3 and then cosine t, and then say I'll put a t outside. So how are we going to find the limit of this? If we put the 0 directly, we could expect this to be 0 over 0. So what will trigger that we could think of it that somehow this is a 1 minus cosine t over t? Because you see a 1 minus cosine squared t. You can extract by factoring that the 1 minus cosine t will appear. Okay, so if we will try that, then we have limit as t approaches 0, factoring, so 1 minus cosine t, and then 1 plus cosine t over. You have the t. What can we do with the 3 plus 3 cosine t? Factor out the 3. So you have 3 and then 1 plus cosine t. And then when you see that, you can cancel 1 plus cosine t. And you have 1 minus cosine t, but it's over 3t. Okay, so don't be confused with the 3. For limit values, you can actually factor out the constant outside the limit. So you have 1/3 and then limit as t approaches 0 of 1 minus cosine t over t. There's no more 3t, but it's just a t. But what is the limit of 1 minus cosine t over t? as we established, it is 0. So even that 1/3 will not actually affect, as we see that it's a 1/3 times 0, and this is 0. Okay, so those are two examples in which the functions are not written in terms of sine t over t directly, or 1 minus cosine t over t. Okay?